Welcome back, YouTube. So today I'm going to be answering the big one, the big question of whether or not Dogecoin is oversold, and go over some entries as well. So the biggest thing I wanted to discuss is the pretty much like the breakdown, and the breakdowns are going to be the floors that Dogecoin typically hits and the historic percentages, and why these are so important to pretty much gauge your entries off of. So technically speaking, Doge has an all-time high of roughly around 74 cents. And for math's sake, we're going to say roughly it's sitting at 12 cents right now. So that puts this correction, this bear market, whatever you want to call it for Dogecoin at around 84%. Now, historically, you'll see 50 to 80% correction, 90% on the extreme side. We are closer at that 84 to the extreme side, and even above, like technically like the typical ranges are like 50 to 80%. So when you are pretty much hanging out at a resistance level that mathematically it sits within range, and 12 cents is one we've been talking about for the last few months. So this is something that was expected, right? This didn't catch us by surprise. We were expecting 12 cents and for there to be some support there. So we are at the extreme side here. And the question is there a possibility that it can go down, or is this a great entry for the coin? And when you're at the extreme side historically, and it aligns mathematically with the overall corrections and stuff like that, technically speaking, buying at floors or support levels is technically a good buy. I plan most of my entries around this point, just typically because on the way up, technically we can count as far as I can use that as a way to, and if I'm looking to exit a play or something like that, I can play with that support level that we had on the way down. I know that we can possibly get a boost there because people are comfortable buying back in. There's a lot of reasons to buy at around those levels, but technically speaking, I plan most of my entries and or exits around these points. Now, historically, when you hit these points, that's typically when you reach your oversold point. This is literally historic. This is not specifically pertaining to Dogecoin. This is historic ranges for any coin. Technically speaking, when you hit these ranges, you reach a point of it being oversold. Not saying it can't go lower, but technically around this point and lower, if it were to retract more, these typically are great entries. And these are going to be pretty much where you would gain the maximum amount of percentage or gains on the next bull run. So historically speaking, yes, these at this price point, 12 cents and anything lower is obviously great entries. Now, as far as we're trying to time the market or say, okay, well, I want to catch some at 10 cents, or I want to catch some at that bottom level, like around 6 cents. I mean, you can try and play it that way. But again, as we do here, and as I often say, in my opinion, I think it's just best to spread out whatever your initial capital is going to be. And so that way you're always being able to pretty much buy some at the current prices and also give yourself the opportunity to catch some lower. Trying to time the market is very difficult, and timing it perfectly is like saying, okay, well, not only can I time my entry, but I'm going to be able to time the exit properly. And it's just something that's really extremely difficult to do and really not worth it, especially if you're talking about a couple cents, unless you're just coming in with a massive amount of money. Now, is there a catalyst for Dogecoin to go lower? Absolutely, because Bitcoin, on the other hand, the market indicator, the one that technically is, I won't say that controls the market, but it is kind of like an anchor in the market. People, any catalyst that they can to pretty much pump Bitcoin or to stop it from doing like its full correction, technically that's what we're having here. Russia is buying Bitcoin. Bitcoin is going to be, hedged against the inflation and stuff like that. And technically speaking, yes, gold historically has been used as a hedge. And if Bitcoin is crypto gold, then I can see that happening. But personally, I don't believe the market is large enough for that. And also, when you say hedging against inflation, that's typically not retail or people with limited amount of resources. Typically, you'll see institutions do that, large portfolios, and overall just wealthy people. Because if you were to go into like a recession or so and not be able to see these prices again for 2 or 3 years, even if most of the retailers decided that they were going to hedge with Bitcoin and or gold, at some point, more than likely, they don't have enough resources to last 2 or 3 years in order for that hedge to be successful, and they would just end up selling at a loss. So yeah, that's a possibility, but at the same time, I do believe that we have room for further correction in Bitcoin, and ultimately that can affect the price of Doge. And contrary to popular belief, and I'm going to say this here too, because people often rag on like the Dogecoin community and stuff like that. The Bitcoin community has pumpers as well, and they're going to use whatever catalyst they can to pretty much, the Bitcoin community has moon boys too. So it's not just like Doge or any of these other cryptos. They're going to use whatever catalyst they can to try and push the, the coin forward. And not saying I don't believe in Bitcoin. I do believe with every ounce of my being that Bitcoin is going to be a six-figure coin one day. But we have to look at the micro here for now, and there is room for Bitcoin to further consolidate. And ultimately, that means that this can have an effect on the cryptos that consolidated technically to the extreme side first, because they don't have the big narratives and stuff that Bitcoin has, and that they're going to react a lot faster. Now, this could push a lot of coins, a lot of the lower cap coins into a point of like it being extremely oversold. And then the buying pressure pretty much just comes in and they're just so cheap. And even institutions say, okay, well, this is obviously easy money here. Now we're not going to hold for a long term, but this is so cheap that we're going to make entries here. And this can pretty much prevent it from reaching those lower support levels. But ultimately, this can leave room for further consolidation in some of these lower cap coins. And if you look at a lot of the indicators, whether it's RSI, MACD and stuff like that, most of these will signal buys just because of the, you can look at your EMAs and stuff like that as well. Most of them will signal buys just because of like 200-day moving averages and stuff like that. And obviously they'll say, okay, well, this is, and again, the percentages that you can just run off the top of your head, you'll say, okay, well, obviously this is at a point of being oversold and you'll be due for some appreciation on the flip side. The question is with these catalysts is how long is that going to be? And this is one of the reasons why I tell people to spread out the investments, because technically speaking, they'll either be, impatient from last year. Oh my God, it's taking for so long. And oh my God, it's been going down 8 months and stuff like that. And, historically, if you look at the last 3 or 4 cycles of Bitcoin, when you see like these corrections and stuff like that, it takes sometimes years, like on multiple occasions, for it to reach an all-time high again. Yeah, you'll have a bounce back up, or it's not like a steady downtrend. But and again, this cycle is completely different for a number of reasons. But sometimes, usually it's months, like 10, 11, 13, 15 months, stuff like that, before you see another all-time high. But again, just make sure you're doing your research and looking at cycles and not just reading like forums and stuff like that. Otherwise, you're going to be really discouraged when it comes down to crypto investing. This is not something that is in a bull run. It's great. It's easy. Everything's going up. But this is not something that you can time or say, okay, well, within 60 days, this needs to be, running again, or warn about the reactions of other coins. There's difference between big cap and lower cap. We even have different exchanges and funds for that in the stock market. But again, time reveals all, and I do believe there will be a greater understanding in the crypto market as we go forward. But looking at Dogecoin here, 12 cents and anything below, just based off of ranges and a lot of the market indicators, in my opinion, these are great entries. With that being said, yes, we still can have liquidity issues in the markets from margins of from people who have hedged, shorted stocks. This liquidity pull that we have coming up, no more QE. There's no guarantee that the 0.25 interest rate hike is going to get inflation under control. We have no idea for a solution or what's going to happen with the Russia-Ukraine situation. There are many reasons that this can be tilted, or the schedule or the timing of this can be adjusted. But mathematically speaking and looking at the charts here, these entries are great, but you cannot obviously time the rise and stuff like that, because everything's changing so much now, and the Fed has pivoted. So it's a lot of things, a lot of different variables that are going on right now. As I mentioned last night on my live, I do believe that because of these external situations outside of the Fed, and pretty much they're being very careful and pivoting a little bit, I do believe a lot of the potential momentum and stuff like that, we're going to be put kind of much on wait and see mode, and this is going to roll over into Q2. We were looking for the indicators and pretty much some of the answers by the end of Q1, which was March 16th. And they've pretty much released it like a week or so ahead of schedule, saying, hey, we're going to do 0.25, potentially doing a bunch of smaller hikes to pretty much not shock the market. And I do believe this is directly tied to a lot of the international affairs with Russia and Ukraine and stuff like that. But the biggest catalyst we're going to have for that is to make sure that those rate hikes are being affected and make sure that the VIX and the yield curve and stuff like that are not inverted. And, it's pretty much at that point, definitely sending panic throughout the market and certainly indicating a recession. With that being said, looking at the chart here, we are on track to pretty much have our new trend around like the 10th. Could be possibly sooner. We're certainly closing in on the end of our bridge here, and we'll be able to pretty much gauge it and possibly set up a new trend going forward. 12 cents is doing great. And I'd say the biggest catalyst that we have coming up this month is certainly to see the support of the Dogecoin community with AMC. That's one I've been waiting on like for the last 5 months or so. I've been talking about this since like the beginning, like pretty much since the end of last year, just because I believe this is one of the biggest catalysts that we have so far. The rest of them are great, but for continuous utility, I am infatuated with the AMC catalyst, and I want us to show up with that same support that we did for Tesla merch and hit a home run with this here and show other businesses, other institutions that this is not just about things that are attached to Elon, that the Dogecoin community is going to show up and show out for Dogecoin, no matter what business is pretty much open to using the coin. This is going to be like a really big step forward for getting mass utility in Dogecoin. So with that being said, that's all I have for now. Hit the like button, share, subscribe, share with a friend. Check out BlockFi. I have a link in the description. You can get up to $250 in Bitcoin and Ethereum. Some of your favorite cryptos, they offer several to choose from. I appreciate all of you. Thank you. And until next time.